Oh, I forgot to play our countdown today. We are live already. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. And welcome back to GovConHacks.
Hi, everyone.
We are a little bit tired this Thursday, but we're going to struggle through this with you guys to keep you updated on the changes. If you're new here, I'm Ashley Duhl, Natasha Velez from NVS Strategic Solutions, and we are going to answer some questions from the audience today. I've had several conversations this week with clients in various industries with very specific questions about certain impacts and certain changes, the DOE threat as far as, what are we going to see if DOE gets canceled? What does that mean for you guys? Who got new contracts. So there's all kind of things that are changing, and it's kind of part of the shift of the administration.
Right.
But I'll start by asking you anything new at the top of mind that happened this week that necessarily, or any announcements that you maybe have to make before we get into the topic tonight. Anything you want to discuss?
Too many. Well, everyone knows here I do capture, I do proposal development. It's not my thing, but I have a lot of clients that have been nonstop on my call, contacting me about various things. So I kind of want to get into it. Because I truly believe that people are getting nervous about government contracting. I'm noticing a shift. Last year, and ever since 2020, honestly, all the way up till 2024, there was this phenomenon of, oh, I want to get into government contracting, middleman approach, do this, do that, stability, sales in the federal government, amazing, make the biggest client, the government, right? And I'm noticing this trend, and I notice it from because I'm stalkerish, so I'll see ads going up for your buy my course or get my ebook and all this stuff. And I'm noticing the comments this time around, and they're all universally the same. You get the one or twos that are not really, probably not watching the news as much or putting the two and two together. But a majority of them are this is not a good time for government contracts. This is not something that we're interested in right now. Or you'll see people kind of throw in there, oh, well, Doge is getting rid of everything, so what is the point? And we're noticing a lot of skepticism towards the federal market. So first and foremost is the understanding that people think ultimately all around that government contracting is not stable any longer. And I think that's probably the first thing we should address before we even go into the changes, because I feel like I'm gonna address the changes.
Definitely a myth.
But I do want to discuss that cynicism and kind of that negative persona that people are starting to gain with the federal procurement process.
I mean, the U.S. government is the biggest client. We spend the most money of anybody else in the world on an annual basis. I'm pretty sure that's still true.
Yeah.
But we procure the most goods and services. DoD has the biggest budget. There are certain things that aren't necessarily going to change.
Right.
The government is not going to stop having needs. There are millions of us, guys. But you can't, if you think of the government as a company, you can't care for millions of employees without having certain things in place to make sure that wheel runs smoothly.
Correct.
So to your point, a big concern that I have been getting is, from consultants, from those doing business with Department of Education or have current contracts, and then USAID. I have to say that one was a little
That was
near
harsh.
my heart. That was a little harsh.
Yeah, that was. I
that
think there
was
was roughly almost 800 contracts and grants that were impacted. So that was a rough one.
The farmers are very much impacted. The tariffs make it harder for the farmers to sell their goods to, the import, export, and the supply chain. And then you have the fact that the subsidies that they get to run their farms and to keep their lands harvesting to feed us. If they're not getting that check, those lands could dry up. So that does pose a a pretty concerning risk. But it doesn't. That's more of a grant situation than a contract. So
Correct.
we'll leave that for another day. But
Yeah. I think also, like, the other one was we had noticed that there were a lot of contracts canceled,
mhm.
but they were reinstated. One thing I will say is that when we make a mistake, we rectify it. So maybe we were too harsh. Maybe we canceled too fast. Maybe we didn't realize what some contracts scope of work was, right? And what the benefit and consequences were to terminating it, right? So there were a lot of USAID contracts that were reinstated. And so they are still kind of going through them. And I wouldn't say that, the government is, they make mistakes. I mean, it's just a bunch of people running essentially a government. We're all going to make mistakes. So I'm happy to say, though, at least they were sending that. And they did like a giant announcement on SAM of all the
Mhm.
contracts that are being put back. So that is a positive.
The Apex Accelerator program is being looked at.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that if you are a client of your Apex Accelerator and they have been helpful to you, I'd encourage you to send an email to your congressperson and let them know that you value the program. I do have a soft spot. Like, here's the thing: is from a selfish perspective, if there wasn't free help for you out there, sure, Natasha and I would make more money. But the point is that the free support is there to help you grow your business. There's a time that you're going to need us anyway.
Right.
So get all the free support that you can and make sure if we don't speak up, then they're going to assume non-essential, right?
Right.
So thoughts on your on I had this question come up today, and the first part, mission critical, is, pretty we can substantiate a definition for mission critical,
Right.
or essential, and I'll put that in my air quotes, essential. So I had the question was posed to me, what's the difference? And what's the definition of essential? How do I know if my contract's going to get canceled? And for that, I have to say, the only thing that I have to compare that to would be COVID, when we looked at essential workers. But considering there isn't a hard definition, unless you know one that I'm not aware of course, like, keep me honest here. But that leaves a lot open for interpretation. What I might consider essential is not what Natasha might consider essential, or one of you in our audience. So I
Correct.
feel like there's too much ambiguity for us to even be able to say what that could or may not be, essentially.
I
So
agree.
we'll have to wait on that. But mission critical is mission critical.
I
That
agree.
if you're in support of a mission, you're not going to get canceled. So that's the good news. The rest is still up in the air. It doesn't mean we stop doing what we're doing. I
Mhm.
had a couple of folks express some feelings of just worry and fear about the what ifs. And I mean, the thing is, for example, we're still showing up here on Thursday. We're not going to give up on all of you because things are getting canceled elsewhere,
Right.
right? We're going to pivot, and we're going to, if a rule changes or if a trend starts existing that we didn't see coming, we're going to work through it, and we'll be here to help you navigate it. But
Right.
we don't just give up on what our goals are because of a change in administration, and
Correct.
I will die on that hill.
I think some of the things that we want to focus on a um and I say this all the time. It is hard for folks not to get emotional. Um you see it everywhere. Everyone is a little biased. Everyone's got a lot of emotions because it's affecting people personally, right? But I always try to put like my business hat on, and I'll keep the personal for later. Um So from like 9 to 5, I'm business, right? So I'm following the facts. I'm
It's
following the
7:10,
data.
guys. It's 7:10, just letting you know.
I still got my business hat on. She knows I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Anyway, gotta get this money. So anyways, You have to always, when you're doing business, you cannot allow your personal, and I think we learned this from Target. You cannot allow your personal feelings, thoughts, biases, culture to essentially nix out a good portion of the market because you need your business. Let's be real, you need your business, right? So no matter who's in the administration, I still got rent to pay, right? So I want to build my business based on the changes of the landscape. What is the forecast looking like now? What are the executive orders? Keeping my finger on the pulse, being the one that knows everything that's going on in the room without the emotions. And that's not always the easiest, but it's a requirement to survive. It
Yeah.
really is. There is a reduction in federal spending for consultants. Think about, Ashley and I. Um, Anyone with the next code of consulting is
5
now
for 1,
heavily
6 for 1. Yeah.
heavily evaluated. I think giant companies, we're seeing that nothing is unapproachable because we have like companies like Accenture and Deloitte getting kind of called out, and their contracts are now being heavily scrutinized and reviewed for mission critical or mission essential. We're noticing some changes in cost plus firm fixed fee. Should we push that more to a firm fixed fee? It's more efficient, which, just so you know, guys, that puts more of the risk on you as a government contractor. So what does that tell me? That tells me I have to spend, you have to do my basis of estimate a little more wiser. I have to be conscientious that if I say 200,000, it better be 200,000 because anything over that, I'm eating to my profit margins. So I am just keeping my finger on the pulse and completely informing myself and my business of the changes so that I can adapt. We learned that in 2020 when, businesses went from doing document services to creating like, breathing machines.
Yeah.
It was a crazy time.
I actually helped an IT company get some PPE contracts
There
during
you go.
I mean,
You know,
you're spending
we're
money
all
on
good.
IT, but there's plenty of PPE.
There, we follow the money, right? And we always
Exactly.
tell you to stick to your niche, right? But if there's no money in your niche, like, follow the money.
Well,
So,
once you're kind of in and you have the relationships, it does become a lot easier to sell other
right.
stuff to the people you already know, right?
Yeah.
While that may be the exception to the rule, and most of our audience may be newer to government contracting. But please don't, I think the takeaway here is don't let the news and the catchy headlines and the clickbait deter you from what you know to be true already. And that's the government spends a ton of money.
Right.
They buy almost everything, products and services. Now, if you are a consultant, I did actually have this conversation today with two consultants. Both of them are positioned very well in their past experience to justify what they're doing as training. So
Mhm.
that might be a pivot, and this is why we've
Very
mentioned in the
smart.
last 2 episodes, and I'll continue to remind you guys, this is why it's important to be doing your market research,
Right.
especially now. I'm repeating it literally every 3 months, monthly if something's going on and I have specific questions, but
Mhm.
every 3 months is gonna give you a good indication of what the trends are doing. If
Right.
money is being reallocated from consulting to training, what does that mean? You have to go and update your SAM, add that 611430 if it's not on there, optimize your DSPS profile, update your marketing materials. There are things that you're going to have to do just to shift and pivot. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily detrimental, but do make yourself aware and keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your industry. Read
Right.
through the executive orders. Don't just depend on the news. They don't tell the whole story. They tell you enough to get you to watch. So read
Correct.
yourself.
Get the you get the level of bias in that.
Right,
Um,
depending on which station you're watching. Exactly.
well, I had one that came up this week. I don't know. They had, I think I told you about this, the CHIPS Act. So it's still law today. But I know that Trump, in his speech, was stating that he was looking at eliminating the CHIPS Act. And so, if people don't know it, it's essentially a way to support manufacturers in the U.S. that develop semiconductors, chips, things of that magnitude to help us with AI and computers, and just essentially to innovate and be more efficient. And the goal was, for us to be able to build those manufacturing facilities here. But it was I think it was a $185 billion grant that the Biden administration had pulled through. Um, and now that that's kind of on the chopping block, there was a Taiwanese company that came in and said, hey, we'll invest all that money ourselves into building facilities in the US and create jobs. Um, and that way we can eliminate having to pay tariffs going back and forth. It just makes more sense. So some companies that are already US based reached out and said, well, what does that mean for me? How will I, since I can't access those grants, since the businesses I do business with are no longer able to access those grants, right? Um, and I had to take a moment to re-strategize and redevelop this, but who's the new kid on the block? Who's the Taiwanese company building, facilities in Arizona? Where are they going to go? How can I get to know them? They're going to have to register with the government, right? And start having a SAMDOC, right? So it's just a new partner.
They're gonna have to go through the process. It's a new partner.
New partner.
No, and there are other areas of contention. I know, especially in the real estate industry, when it comes to foreign-owned firms coming in
Mhm.
and
Right.
gobbling up the real estate, jacking the prices
Mhm.
up, and position it can be argued that that does take away from Americans, but if it is gonna create jobs and it does bring revenue, I mean, essentially, I'm not qualified enough to have an opinion on because, sometimes we don't understand the ramifications until way later.
That is
But,
correct.
I mean, that's a interesting and it reminds me, wasn't there a chip shortage,
Yeah.
like, a few years ago? And, like, phones were on back order, we couldn't get any technology devices. It
Right.
was I
And
think it
that
was
was kind of
during
the
or right
whole
after
point of
COVID.
the grant. That was the whole
That's
point
why
of
the
it. So
grant
you
was put in
wouldn't
place? Okay.
So you wouldn't be so dependent on outsourcing to Taiwan and China and all that. So that was the whole point of it.
I would love to see us start making more stuff again. Like, what happened to the businesses that are like, "Hey, we're CNC machining. We can make anything with metal," or, "Hey, we manufacture this." Used
Right.
to be very prevalent and not anymore. Nobody wants to go into making things anymore, and that's
No.
really I would love to help one of those businesses again. If any of you are in our audience, please come see me. If you make stuff or you have an innovative idea, please come see me. Um, but yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of those. I got a CNC machinist the other day, and I was like, "Thank goodness." But that was only one in maybe a year.
Yeah.
So,
I think I saw there was this one she had and I wish I would have remembered the name of the company. She had a really catchy name, but her company was all about developing straws. Um, straws that were friendly, environmentally friendly. And she was and for the Biden administration, I mean, she was thriving. And then, we came out with an executive order about straws. And she was like, and I was like, look, I can be captured for so long. I was like, I don't know how to pivot straws.
yeah, there's not a I mean, if it's a micro purchase, you're not gonna find a whole lot of data on that. You might as well
You might switch the commercial. And that's always an option. I tell people, like, look, 100% of your revenue cannot just be the government, right?
Yeah,
Like, maybe try some commercial work too to keep your money going in uncertain times. Like, you see these moments when there's like a shutdown, a government shutdown, and no one's getting paid. Government contractors, if they don't have other sources of income, that they take a big hit,
yeah.
not alongside federal employees.
I mean,
So,
imagine if you were working with USAID and that was your only contract. I
yes.
mean, that definitely hurts. So,
Yes.
we oftentimes, 5 or more years ago, It was you were getting into government contracting to diversify your business. And
Right.
today, I'm going to encourage you guys to put on your sales 101 hats and
Mhm.
make sure that you have a proven sales process in the commercial market too, for what it is that you sell. That will get you through uncertain times. That will make sure that your family is fed and your cost per lead is so much less. Not to say that government is not a way to build sustaining revenue, but
Right.
in times of uncertainty like we're in, it should not be your only revenue stream. Like,
Yep.
let's be real. I mean, we're in 2025. Most of us can't survive on just one revenue stream, let alone, one specific agency, one contract doing one thing. So, if
Right.
anybody in our audience, has questions about diversification, about anything we're talking about here today, please use the chat. That's what it's there for. Give us some material here, guys.
Mhm.
All right, we do have a question. Hey, DJ. DJ says, as a semi newbie, should we be reaching out to agencies requesting capability briefing? For some reason, I think that since they're cutting, they may not want my services. Terrible thinking, I know. Well,
Mm.
um, couple different parts to that. Not necessarily, I wouldn't recommend ever sending like a spam campaign and requesting a capability briefing immediately. But if you've done your targeted homework to know which agencies buy what you sell, I do agree that, perhaps letting them know that you're there could not necessarily be terrible. I would not expect a huge reply right
Yeah.
now. I mean, you have to understand that all of your points of contact, they are federal employees, and they are probably just as, if not more, shaken up than we are at this point. So I can imagine what it's like working in an agency right now. You probably like your sole focus is probably on damage control. I have some friends
Right.
at military agencies. I have family that are federal employees and in many different capacities. And, it's all pretty much the same feeling. I wouldn't expect too many briefings to happen this quarter, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't still be marketing your business. What
Right.
I would do perhaps is create an entry level offer if you can. Do I think that they're going to spend time out of their day and have a one on one meeting? Probably not if they're canceling all of the public events that are happening right now. There was a DOE just canceled a small business.
I saw that.
I saw that and I was like, darn,
Mhm.
that stinks. So a lot of the agencies, will do these events, but even those are being canceled right now. I just wouldn't get your hopes up. Right now would be a good time to be networking with the primes.
Correct.
They are business as usual. They're also looking for new opportunities. They may have been affected in some way. What other advice on top of that can you give Natasha?
I have to agree. I like what you said. It is the switching of who you're paying attention to, knowing that the agencies are super busy right now and they're stressed out and they're under the gun and they're worried about their own jobs because again, they're just people. Um, and so I think pivoting and essentially just kind of reaching out to primes and building business where there already is business instead of creating new business is probably the safest bet. I think this is the time to play it safe a little bit and not get so wild and crazy. Um, so yeah, hit up your primes, showcase. I mean, small businesses there's still contracts coming out geared towards small businesses. There's still
They're still
um,
subcontracting plans.
it's still there. So reach out to your primes, build business. You're going to get a better chance through that. And small
To your
business liaisons, vendor supply programs online, all that stuff. That's a better way.
Yeah, and if I reach out to anybody right now, DJ, as a follow-up to that, it would be the small business people.
Mhm.
They'll keep you abreast of what's going on in the agency, before a contracting officer is going to give you a briefing at this stage of the game. I would think I'd be pretty confident to put my bottom dollar on that. But back to the diversification, a lot of your primes have their feet in multiple markets.
Right.
Right? So it doesn't matter who the end user is, if it's a commercial customer, if it's a state customer, if it's a federal customer, if that prime has a little bit of all of it, being on their team can only help you grow during these times.
And that is a good point. let us pivot just a tad bit on that one. Um, I saw something the other day, and it was an interesting take, and I was like, "Hey, you're not necessarily wrong." So, where the federal might be a little wonky right now, SLED is still a thing.
SLED is kicking. It is alive and kicking.
So you can still do state, you can still do your counties and your locals and your cities and your educational universities. So where one might seem unstable, another is still a good prominent opportunity.
And let's think, hold on, I got you bring up an excellent point. Let me piggyback off of that. So let's think about what's going to happen if Department of Education gets wiped out.
Ah,
The
yes.
education is going to be the problem
The
of the
state.
state again, right?
Mhm.
What does that mean? That means that the state is going to be responsible for filling the same needs that the federal government was once responsible for. So the
Correct.
contracts don't necessarily go away. The responsibility just shifts down to the state, right? So if I am doing business with Department of Education, what I would be doing right now, or if I'm in that realm, I would surely be registering on the state procurement sites in my immediate
Mhm.
region and branching out from there.
Yep. And think about it. You're much closer to the people in your state
Yeah,
than you are to
there
the
is so much work in
person.
your own backyard.
Mhm.
I gotta say, like Florida's a really big state, and a pretty good percentage of the businesses that reach out to me are within my state. I'm in the databases in my state. My certifications are in my state. So I have a lot more visibility in my state.
Right.
Just because the small disadvantaged business goal is lower now than it was prior to January 20th doesn't mean that there's not still value to be in that database.
Right.
Um, yeah, I definitely can understand DJ who goes to SLED first and then Fed personally. And at the end of the day, if you're new to the industry or newer, SLED's a lot easier to play in, like,
Yes.
especially for what I do. I mean, they don't mess around with their subcontracting plans, but with what I do, like,
Yeah.
it's a whole lot easier to play in because otherwise I'm stuck waiting for a long-term contract vehicle or for a prime to need my services, or I have to execute the sale on the front end. So
Right.
it's a little bit different. Whereas the state agencies, there's so many of them and they're buying so many different things, so many different ways. Um,
And they're quicker. They're
yeah.
just quicker. I get my awards faster. I don't have to wait a whole year.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wait a year, it's crazy. But with, state, I usually maybe like 2, 3 months max. That's where I've been at lately with Hillsborough County anyways, to get a response back, but I just think it's a better option if you don't feel like the federal government is stable enough for you right now to take that risk. You don't, I have some businesses that, and this was a sad one, went out and bid on an opportunity, spent a lot of money on proposal writing services, and they canceled the contract after submission.
Oh no, that's terrible. That's just bad form.
So mad, so
Oh,
mad.
painful.
Um, Yeah, so he was not too pleased with that. So, I can understand if, you're a small business, that's a huge hit. If you're a large business, that's nothing. That's pennies.
Right.
Um, so again, if you're risk adverse, go prime or go sled.
Or sub.
Yeah.
Subbing is definitely, and especially in the federal space. I mean, even though in some cases, like if DoD is the agency that the contract's with, you're still
Mhm.
gonna have a bunch of hurdles to jump through, CMMC compliance, et cetera, flow down clauses from the prime.
Yeah.
But a lot of them play in SLED too. Like I think my last contract I bid against, one of the bidders was IBM on that work management one.
Yeah, we had one where Accenture was, and I was like, "Accenture is, like, huge." Like,
Like,
"Really?"
what are you even doing here?
I was like, "These are little contracts. Why are you
Like,
trying to get all of
no. But that's a great example
them?"
of a use. Even the big guys diversify. Even
Yeah,
they go after the little crumbs to supplement their income.
right.
All right. DJ says, I recently switched industries tech to janitorial. So at the moment, I need to find primes to build up past performance. You can do that in usaspending.gov at
Mhm.
the federal level or look in the procurement database at your state. Um, and don't hate, I'm not hating on the little contracts. They add up. I love little contracts.
You don't hate on them,
I
but
don't, those are my favorite contracts.
what? I don't hate on them. I just like to focus on the millions and billions.
Well, yeah, but you write proposals.
Yeah, I know.
I
It's more
don't.
hours and I get commission. So yeah, I get it. But that's my revenue base. So that's why I care about those things. So I focus on people that already have existing contracts, IDIQs, things of that magnitude, contract vehicles that have stable mission critical work, IT, cybersecurity, it's not going anywhere. Um, and it a lot of it, some of it can be cut, but not all of it. So um, that's how you diversify your business. Keep yourself in the game by ensuring that you're always following the money, switching up agencies, reconnecting and networking. And also, not all agencies are not attending events. There are some that are not, and there's some that are, right? Matchmaking events. Find those in your local area. That way, you're not spending a lot of time traveling. But if there's one nearby you and there's a matchmaking event that you get to meet with an agency for like 5-10 minutes to do a sales pitch, boom, you have a capability briefing, and
Yeah.
you're gonna get the meeting because they're right there. So no harm, no foul.
Like your local SBDC, Small Business
Mhm.
Development Center, they're doing, even in our area, I've gotten like 3 emails in the past
Yeah,
couple weeks about networking events that are being had, or they're getting the small businesses together, and one of them, one was in
right.
St. Pete, one was in Hillsborough. So there are still opportunities to be had where you
Yep,
can show up, shake a hand, and not have to worry about what's going to change tomorrow. I
right.
mean, I know that the straw thing happened down here for a while there. We all had paper straws on our beaches, and
Yeah.
then and then now we're back to plastic straws. But by and large, things don't typically tend to change at the state level like they're like you see them changing at the federal level right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think this level of rapid changes is probably unprecedented for most of us. I know for me, a lot of things change, but they're not so
Oh no, I've been
indicative.
in I've been in this industry like 15 years now.
I've been in 15 years too, but I'd never
I've never
remember.
seen this.
I've never seen any.
I haven't like 2020 definitely loophole, but that was more of an HR nightmare. So
For me, it was more of emergency management, supply
yeah, it was
chain.
more like
Those were the issues that I saw during COVID.
for me, it was all HR. It was like, do we keep them for 7 days? Do we lock them up for 12? When they come back to work, where is all the sanitizer? Like that was the chaos. And where's the CEO? She's baking bread. What? So it was, that crazy time, but it wasn't this crazy. This is like probably the first time I've ever seen this in the federal government where like contracts are just kind of all over the place. The federal employees are all over the place. I mean, I was just like shocked that, there was a newscaster who was literally like, if anybody knows about government contracting, send me information because I don't know anything about it. And I have to report on this because it's suddenly like the newest topic. And I was like, allow me to introduce myself. Nobody ever asked me about government contracting. Oh. So
And
it's
this
suddenly
is
a thing.
it's a good point. Now everybody is all of we have been in these trenches
Mhm.
in the asylum of Defense Acquisition University, getting our we have been doing this for so long. Now everybody's showing an interest in it. And I wish, and this is something that I've said way before this administration, I said,
Mhm.
I wish that every voter had to take a course on this topic, right? Because it
Civic.
might it might change your perspective a little
Right.
bit, when you learn how to follow the money. And
Mhm.
whether it does or doesn't, it matters less, but having more information, like knowledge is power, right?
Right. It is. It
Just
is.
knowing how it works and opening your mind. I wish I would have known about it a lot sooner. I mean, I didn't get into it until my late 20s. If I was it late 20s? Yeah. If I had known about it when I was in high school, I might have planned my life a little bit differently, you know?
Like we
So I
all
think
were.
it's definitely
That
just
should be a course in high school. I'm
it
just saying,
should.
right?
I proposed that before, actually.
You know what? The Department of Education is moving to Florida. We need to talk about it.
Well, get the governor on the line since he's gonna be the new decision maker for edu.
Oh, we'll see. Well, I am very happy that you all were able to attend. I know that these are, conditions that are unfavorable, but there is still money to be had. And I just want you all to think wisely about where you obtain it from. Pivot, be agile, um, consider partnering. Consider partnering with people that have already won contracts. Educate yourself. USAspending.gov is a great tool for that. DSBS, I recently actually learned how to use that. 15 years, and this is the first time I ever used it.
Wow.
I was like, where do people find this? And I was like, oh, I was today years old. You never stop learning. Quite
Never stop
literally.
learning. This question actually goes into what you're talking about. Mention follow the money a few times. What does that look like for you? USA spending, FPDS budget. So let me break that down for a moment because you hit the nail on the head. USA spending is my go-to.
Yeah.
That information sources from FPDS. So same stuff, better user-friendly filters, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That will tell us like what's already happened, right? But don't
Mhm.
forget, DoD has that 90-day reporting lag. Civilian agencies have 30. So it's not going to be instantaneous, but it'll help you track trends over time. One way would be sam.gov, right? So in your saved searches, you're probably going to see less of less opportunities in a particular NAICS that you've been seeing for the last 4 years, right?
Right.
And then more might pop up in another one. You're just going to start seeing pattern changes also in open opportunities. Something else, a third source I'll give you is going to be your forecasts, right? Now, agencies don't do a historically great job at updating their forecast, but the agencies that have already reprioritized will probably be making updates. So be sure to check those too.
And
Um,
I'll add another one to that one.
what's that?
The news. Follow what people care about. Follow changes in contracts. Follow changes in grants. Follow what the administration cares about most now. That's where following the money comes in. It's that also kind of like, yeah, the numbers play a huge role, but in a time where things change so rapidly based on how someone feels, you want to be able to follow what it is that they care about most. Innovation, chips, AI, right? Weapons of mass destruction. Um, all the things that the Trump administration
Efficiency.
cares. Mission critical things, missile defense, that's another one. Um, Border Patrol, DHS, ICE, that's where money's going. Those are the agencies that are getting the funding, right? So those are the things that you need to kind of like sit down and really kind of take in when you know one thing's going. So we're not going to fund, Department of Education. Okay, so where's the funding going to go? Because it's not going to stop spending. So what do they care about? We don't care about environment. Got it. What do we care about? We care about, custom and border control.
AI.
We care about cybersecurity. We care about manufacturing more chips so we can create bigger databases to handle AI driven, all of that is where the money is. And that's what I mean by following the money. You have to essentially kind of engulf yourself in today's knowledge every day. My husband does a really good job of following Reddit. And that seems to be like a little less emotional, which I like because they'll send me information. Whether I get emotional or not about it is, different. But it's knowing where people's allegiance is aligned, what decisions are going to be made based on preference. I know that, we have now a giant contract for Tesla. to create, these giant, what is this giant Tesla cars that he has? I forgot the name of them.
The Cybertruck?
Yeah, those Cybertrucks.
Those ugly things.
They're so ugly. I'm sorry. So anyone that has it, I'm so
Sorry,
sorry.
not sorry.
They're weird.
No
But, I don't know. I just felt like we'd be in the world of the Jetsons before we got those cars. What the hell? So, anyways,
Where's my
fabulous.
little floating
Right?
bubble?
Like, where's my maid? My little robot maid. Can I
What
have
was
her?
her name? What was her name?
Oh, I don't know. Judy? Oh no.
Judy. I
Judy.
think that was it. Where is my Judy?
That's what I want. I want that before I want these Cybertrucks. But anyways, I digress. If you're in the vehicle market, maybe if you sell parts, that could be a place where you want to build business. So it is following the money. The other day I was sitting there and I had a business development person, Rosie. There you
Rosie.
go. Thank you,
Who was
DJ.
Judy then?
I don't know.
Thank you, DJ. Thank you. DJ totally came up with Rosie.
I think Judy was
Rosie.
I think it was like a Disney movie. I'm pretty sure.
We're totally showing our age now.
I know. It was the Santa Claus. Judy was the waitress at the
Judy was the elf.
Yeah, Judy was the elf.
The elf.
She was also the Denny's
You're
waitress. We are showing our age. Stop. No, but again, it is about following what is going on in the news. If we are not focused in one area, what are we focused on? And pivoting of how you can add value in that area. If an agency is getting an exuberant amount of funding like Space Force, NASA, those are the areas maybe I should look and see what their forecast is looking like. What contracts are coming out for them, because I know that they're going to be a little more stable than, Department of Education or USAID. So that's what I mean when I say follow the money, is really just keep your finger on the pulse, watch the news, know where we're putting our dollars, because it's changing. And even what we thought we had budgeted, it doesn't matter. That's being readdressed and renegotiated and taken away. And as we can see, what we thought we knew is not necessarily always true. So you have to follow based on people's history. That kind of data is a little different.
Yeah. All right. I don't see any more questions in the chat. It is, wow, we went pretty well over today. Look at us getting all carried away.
I know, we got into it.
I know.
But it's a very important topic because it's our industry. So
it is. And yeah, we're super passionate about it too, which doesn't make it any
easier.
Yeah, any easier. But we are, just a friendly reminder, we are shifting to our bi-weekly frequency. So we will be off next week. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. DJ asks, how can we beat out the big guy? These large corps have the manpower, proposal writer, sales team. It's currently just me. Well, I always say, DJ, if you can't beat them, join them, right? That's where teaming and partnering comes in.
She used that old line.
Teaming and partnering is the way to go. So think about like mentor protege program, joint venture agreements.
Yeah,
you're small, they're not.
You
have something they need, right?
Yeah.
I was helping a client write draft their MPP agreement, and we were talking about where they feel that they can be supported, where their gaps exist, and proposal team was one of their barriers to entry. They didn't have the resources to develop the massive proposals their industry required. So that was one of the areas they were able to negotiate in their sort of trade-off with the prime. The prime was going to support the proposal effort, and they were going to provide the capture support. So they put that in the agreement, and that's how they executed their teaming relationship moving forward.
Yeah, you can do that. And also remember that if you're hard on wanting to just do this by yourself, find differentiators. Being small is not a disadvantage, as we like to call it.
Right, we're agile. We have the ability to make these swift changes and move. And
have you ever been to a corporation? It takes years for them to make a decision. You have the ability to be innovative, to make quick decisions, to be able to find resources and solutions very quickly. You don't
Out.
have all those things bogging you down.
Yeah.
So use their weaknesses to push your strengths up. It really is all about strategy. So
Very much so. That means that you do have to do some element of research on
mhm,
the prime that you're reaching out to. So
mhm,
be prepared for that. Make sure you know what contracts they have.
right.
Make sure you've done your homework. Look at the trends and the changes in their award history. You can do all of that on USA spending. So,
Yep.
all right, ladies and gents, any other questions from our audience? I don't see any. So, you guys have a great rest of your weekend. We will miss you next week, but we will be back the week after. Keep you posted of any updates that happen between now and then. Please
Right.
feel free to like and subscribe if you're new here to be sure you're notified next time we go live. And we'll be watching the chat. So, if you have additional questions for those of you who
Mhm.
might be watching on demand, please do drop them there. We'll be sure to answer them while we're off.
Yes.
Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your
Mhm.
week. Bye.